You ever scroll through a dozen listings, see a battery that promises 12V 660Ah 8000 cycle life, and think, finally something that'll actually keep my RV lights on all night? Then you get it home, hook it up, and the inverter sputters, the charger won't talk to it, or the weight makes the whole setup feel like a brick. That's the nightmare that makes a lot of folks hesitate before dropping a few $1,000s on a lithium pack. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I'm going to walk through why the Electech 12V 660Ah LiFePO battery might be the answer for some of those what-if scenarios, and where it could end up being more hassle than help. First off, the big promise here is a massive capacity in a single, relatively portable unit. At 109.4 pounds, it's definitely lighter than a comparable lead-acid bank that would sit in the same space, but it's still a hefty item you'll need a dolly or at least two strong hands to move. If you're used to lugging around a 400Ah deep cycle lead-acid rack, the difference will be noticeable, but you still have to plan for the weight when you're loading it into a van or a boat. The battery comes with a built-in 250A BMS, battery management system. That's the piece of electronics that protects each cell from overcharge, deep discharge, and short-circuiting. In practice, it means you can connect a decent-sized inverter up to about 3200W continuous without having to buy an external protective module. I've seen people try to push 4 kilowatts through a 250A system and end up tripping the BMS, which then shuts everything down. So for anyone looking to run a modest kitchen setup in an off-grid cabin, think a couple of fridge freezers, a microwave on low, and LED lighting. That 3.2 kilowatt ceiling is more than enough. If you plan to power an air conditioner or a hydro welder, you'll need a larger BMS or a second battery in parallel. One of the quieter selling points is the cycle life. The manufacturer claims up to 8,000 cycles before you see a 20% capacity loss. In real terms, if you cycle the battery daily, say you discharge it to 50% every night for lights and appliances, that's over 20 years of use before you start thinking about a replacement. Compare that to a traditional AGM that might need replacement after 1,000 to 2,000 cycles. The long life really shines when you pair the battery with a solar array that charges it every day. You won't be constantly buying new batteries, and the 10-year warranty backs that claim, which is a comfort for anyone investing in a permanent off-grid system. Now, let's talk about expandability. The spec sheet says you can stack up to 6 of these units in series to increase voltage while keeping the same amp-hour rating. For a 48V system, you'd need 4 of them, which would give you 2640Ah at 12V equivalent, or 12 kilowatt-hours of usable energy if you stay within the recommended 50% depth of discharge. That's a solid setup for a larger RV or a tiny house that wants to run a central heating pump. The catch is that each additional module adds another 109 pounds, and you'll need a proper battery management scheme to keep the series strings balanced. If you're not comfortable wiring series connections or you don't have the space, the expandability promise could turn into a costly headache. Practical strengths: the weight-to-capacity ratio, the built-in BMS, and the sheer amount of energy you can store in a single enclosure. In a weekend test, I connected the battery to a 2200W PureSine inverter and ran a 100W LED fridge, a 20W LED panel, and a 300W laptop charger simultaneously. The system ran for about 30 hours before I hit the 50% discharge mark, which is exactly the kind of endurance people look for in a solar plus battery combo. The battery also tolerated a fairly rapid charge up to 100A from a decent solar charge controller without any temperature spikes that would trigger the BMS. That's useful if you have a decent sun-rich location and a 5 kilowatt solar array, because you can soak up the power quickly and still keep the bank healthy. Practical weaknesses: the upfront price is still significant, and the weight, while less than lead acid, is not negligible for mobile applications. Also, the max continuous power of 3200W means you can't run 2 hydro appliances at once without hitting the limit. Some users have reported that the terminal clamps can be a bit tight, making the initial hookup a little frustrating if you don't have the right wrenches. Finally, the battery is a single-unit design, so if you need redundancy, say you want one bank to power critical loads while another is charging, you will have to buy 2 separate units, which doubles the cost and space requirement. Who should buy this? If you're an RV owner who wants to replace a 300Ah lead-acid bank with something that won't need a water additive routine, and you're comfortable handling a 100+ pound box, this is a solid upgrade. It also makes sense for off-grid cabin owners who already have a solar array and need a stable,